or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. A brief disclaimer. Before we start tonight's program, this is a reminder that this episode will address continuous events of my journey with multiple sclerosis and demyelination. It might be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The National MS Society is a collective of passionate individuals who want to do something about MS now. Basically, to move together in a world that wants to be free of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Again, 1-800-344-4867. Or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. And on that, let's begin. To think that yesterday I was coming back from UPenn after my second half infusion of ocrevus. And I just remain completely grateful and thankful for this experience and going through a disease-modifying treatment that has become one of the gold standards as far as multiple sclerosis treatment. We're going to talk about that infusion tonight because this is the Venture Forward. Sitting here in the middle of the second half dose of ocrevus, about an hour away from it being complete, this infusion. And, I'm very thankful for moments like these. I'm very thankful for me to have the opportunity to have a really good chance of not having any more flare-ups. No more exacerbations as it relates to the multiple sclerosis. Anyhow, this is what's going on, and this is the Venture Forward. Good evening, once again, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to the Venture Forward. My name is John Venturini, and I am a recovering addict of alcoholism, compulsive gambling, and overeating, obesity. And it's an honor and pleasure to see all of you tonight on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. It has been a very interesting, a little over 24 hours now, in the sense that there is a lot to do with ocrevus, or ocrevus, or the 900 other ways this is pronounced. And I still haven't had a consistent pronunciation. Now you may be saying, John, it's ocrevus. But talking to 3 medical professionals, they all have a different pronunciation for it. So their guess is as good as mine, which is probably as good as yours. ocrevus, ocrevus, which is basically an infusion drug that is given to people who have multiple sclerosis and other demyelinating syndromes, other demyelinating disorders. For the MS patients like myself, it is given twice a year. But the first dose is done in 2 parts, 2 weeks apart, and it's a half dose. So instead of a 600 milligram dose, it's a 300 and a 300. And they do it slow because they want to make sure the body's not having any ill effect with the drug. So they do it in the middle of an infusion room. I'm at UPenn, Penn Medicine, and great people over there. I was over at the Perelman Center, basically they're basically the cancer wing of the Perelman Center, and they were absolutely really nice, really fantastic, and just the best staff you could ever possibly think of. So before we go any further, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and thanks to the people over at UPenn, because they did an incredible job with the first infusion back on the 31st of March and the infusion yesterday. Muchly thankful for sure. Let's say hello to all of you that are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Some of these names look very familiar. Hi, John Venturini. From someone named Donna Venturini. That would be my mom. Hi, Mom. How are you? Hope you're well. The next name is another familiar name. Bernadette. My Aunt Bern. Hi. Hope you're doing well as well. On a night like this, when I'm fresh off of an infusion, it is great to see two people that are, my blood, my family. And it's really great to see you on the show tonight. Muchly appreciated. And I love you both. Marilyn, another name I know and love. Hi, JV. How are you doing? It's beautiful and sunny here in Seattle with 4 purple hearts and 3 waves. It's sunny here in Philly, outside of Philly. It was mid-60s today. It was absolutely gorgeous. If there was any time to, it's funny. I was having a conversation about this with the staff yesterday. For a spring, we actually have a spring. It's really a treat and a half. It's not any day that's too hot. It's not any day that's too cold. It's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm very fortunate and thankful for the weather, for sure. And I'm glad that the weather is beautiful and sunny in Seattle. My mom has a really good question. She's doing well. How do I feel? I feel okay. I had a bit of grogginess off of the infusion yesterday. A bit of grogginess this morning. It wanes. It ebbs and flows. There is a list of symptoms that come with ocrevus as far as side effects. And there is definitely a full list of those side effects. And I would say it had about half of them on the first infusion, including depression. I must say, in all due honesty, I haven't felt a bit of the depression, yet. The depression on the first infusion didn't kick in until like the second day, the third day. But I think on the most part, things have been good. Knock on wood, things have been good. That's not to say that tomorrow or the next day is going to be, rainbows and unicorns. It's not to say that at all. But right now, I feel decent. So I'm very blessed and thankful for that. I keep on saying those words, but I think about this whole entire experience. And I'm going to take a step back for a second. I feel blessed and thankful because we're in a world right now in 21 that we do have medications that are significantly better at modifying the treatment for multiple sclerosis than what that landscape looked like even 10 years ago. So where we are now in 2021, we are much better off. So much so that the FDA and the National MS Society even has basically accelerated the use of ocrevus, as I knock my microphone almost over, for those that have relapsing MS instead of just progressive MS. So it's really made a lot of strides as far as trying to take care of those from having any potential future flare up down the road. So, very thankful for it. And, the next step in all of this, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes, but as anyone with multiple sclerosis knows, it is always a question of constant monitoring, and not just a poke in the arm or anything, right? It's taking a look at your brain, it's taking a look at your central nervous system, and it's taking a look at the symptomology around it. I, being part of a study at UPenn, am going back to the 7 Tesla MRI machine in 2 weeks for another image of my brain and my central nervous system, my spinal cord, the whole thing, in a machine that is very powerful. It's a machine that is so strong that you don't even need to have contrast to be sent into the machine and to be sent out of the machine, in the sense that because of the magnetic resonance in there, it's so strong, you will feel a bit of vertigo on the way in, and you'll feel a bit of vertigo on the way out. The way the staff told me the first time, quickly dispel that, they said about 30 to 60 seconds. It was more like 3 to 5 minutes. But if the information that the MRI can give at that level of clarity is very good information for the neurology, very good information for my neurologist, rather. It's, yes, definitely. Is it 1 hour of feeling discomfort? Yeah. And I would say, in all due honesty, just the going in, going out. The time in the machine isn't bad at all. But then again, I've had other MRIs that, I'm used to MRIs now. You ever get diagnosed with MS or demyelination, and you have to go get these regular sort of imagery, you become used to the MRI. It's just a matter of being, right? Kind of a parenthetical therein. Really fortunate that my weight's down to the low 200s and not at 480, because first of all, you wouldn't be able to find a machine when I was at 480 anyway. But the second thing is, and this might be more psychosomatic than anything else, I don't have much of a fear of the MRI machine. I don't feel that sort of claustrophobia that some do with the MRI. And I'll tell you, so the first time around, and I know I'm definitely going off script, but let me go there for a second. When I had the first demyelinating event back in 2011, and I was going from doctor to doctor to hospital to doctor to specialist to doctor, I had a series of MRIs. I would have, say, about 6 MRIs. I had a spinal tap and CAT scans. CAT scans for this is basically pointless, right? The first time I went for an MRI on a non-open MRI machine, I had to reschedule. And at the time I was about 270, 280, and I tapped out, couldn't do it. But I went back 2 weeks later, I was able to get the MRI done, and it was fine. Did I stay still? Pretty much. Did they tell me, John, stop moving? Yeah, maybe once. But I think now I've become a little bit of a consummate pro as far as staying still in an MRI. I know the sort of fears about not getting the image correct. So the thing is with the 7T MRI, it's because the magnets are so strong. The MRI, the resonance of the magnets are so strong. It's a very strong image, but it's a real trip going in and a real trip coming out. So just saying that. So that's ahead of me in 2 weeks. I'm going to actually be back at Penn Medicine in a little under 2 weeks, actually, for that. And it's a sort of study where I have to get those 7T MRIs every 3 months in the first year, and then every 6 months for 5 more years after that. I think what neurology is trying to look for is the marked difference between this is the baseline and this is what happens to the lesions and other things around the brain and the central nervous system after starting to take medication. It's going to be it's going to be valuable because this will be the first MRI I take after a full dose of ocrevus, first half dose and the second half dose, which was done yesterday. Going forward, the ocrevus infusions will be every 6 months and a full infusion. So a full infusion being 600 milligrams. And the other thing is, because I didn't have much of a bad effect against those other 2 half infusions, the strategy will be that it's a faster infusion. So you're figuring, oh, well, if it took you 3 or 4 hours to go for 300 milligrams, it's going to take you all day to go for 600. No, it's going to actually only take 2 hours. So it'll be a trip into Philly or maybe another office. Don't know yet. Got to talk to you, Penn, about that. But to see if I can, 1, faster, but 2, if I can get that closer to the house over here. But that's what's coming up. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff coming up with respect to getting some answers, getting a path forward, understanding what's going on, and just working from there. I mean, that's what this is about anyway, right? It's, you have something that when it first affected me in 2011, I'll tell the story again, with the desensitization on the top of my head, down the right-hand side of my body, optic neuritis, well, really not optic neuritis, more optic freezing. It never caused me any pain. But then I had a rare symptom of MS in the sense that it also affected my hearing. When that happens all of a sudden, and you feel like, what the heck is going on here? And you can't even think straight, and the brain fog, and it was horrible. It was so horrible that I had to take about 5 weeks on short term from work. That's how bad it was. So when you don't medicate for multiple sclerosis, and it's not even a question of ocrevus, it could be any of the crab drugs, right? Copaxone, Rebif, Avonex, betasterin, or any of the newer drugs, right? There's still some getting used to the taking of those sort of medications. Now, a lot of the older medications are more common, not common in the sense, but the punctuality is you're taking 3 injections a week or 4 injections a week. We had a guest on last week in Tina Bensman that she still takes a drug that she has to inject herself 3 times a week. Those drugs are still in the marketplace and are, as she talked about last week, it was effective for her. But someone just got me 20 coffees. I'm talking about crab drugs, and I got 20 coffees. Whoever sent me 20 coffees, thank you. Thank you very much for the wonderful super chat of caffeination. I will not be tired for days. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you this evening. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's exactly what I'm dealing with MS. And we'll talk about exactly what ocrevus does. I talked about it after the first infusion and actually with the chat I had with Susan Williams about some of the drugs. And we'll go through those slides real quickly and talk about it. But the reality of it is that multiple sclerosis is such an individualistic disease. It affects people in many different ways. For some people, when they get it, they'll either get primary multiple sclerosis or relapsing multiple sclerosis. And it's a question of how those sort of flare-ups take place. It could be one big flare-up and then a gradual degradation of systems that are connected to the brain and the rest of the body. With relapsing, it could be a height, and then when simmers down and it heights back up and simmers down. It affects people in many different ways. They now have a term for those folks that get one big event and that's it. It's a centralized, what they call CIS. And we'll go through that in a second. But it's basically one event and no one understands where it comes from. So there's a lot of shades of gray with respect to what causes the event. Could be bacterial, could be viral. No one knows. It's multiple sclerosis really just stands for multiple scars. They don't know exactly how it comes to pass. There are diseases that cause it, like Epstein-Barr virus and others. There's been studies that say that mononucleosis causes multiple sclerosis in some folks. And truth be told, as I think I talked about this earlier in the series, I had mononucleosis back in 1996. So was that the marker for that to happen? Who knows? But that was 96, and I didn't get my first demyelinating event until 2011. So what happened there? No one knows. But point is, it's such an individualized disease that you don't exactly know the sort of calling cards that affects other people with. The only thing we can do is monitor people, things like, blood cell readings and blood readings and seeing how levels are. If there's any sort of uncertainty about function, that's when the CAT scan comes in. If the CAT scan proves inconclusive, but the symptoms are bad, then it becomes an MRI. It is very much individualized for sure. Yeah, I heard it can be hereditary. My brother has it. I also have a cousin and an aunt and an uncle who had it as well. Yeah, very much so. It could tie on a family line for sure. And who's to say that there isn't multiple sclerosis somewhere else in the family? Not that I know that has been diagnosed, but I also feel that MS is something that goes underdiagnosed as well. And I think we've gone to into a realm now, as far as a medical community, to better diagnose and better find out whether someone has MS. But then more importantly, helping people out and trying to find the proper levels of treatment once that diagnosis has been made. Let me talk to some of the things that are pursuant to this. So ocrevus is the drug that I took. It is a medication that is taken twice a year, semi-annually. It's a 4-hour infusion with 2 starter doses 2 weeks apart. Within the last year, the regular dosage, a 600 milligram dosage, can be done in 2 hours. That is good news for folks like me. It's good news for anyone who takes ocrevus, in the sense that we don't have to sit in a recovery room or into a fusion room for 4 or 5 hours. Not to say that I didn't like being there. They're good folks and great people that are there to make sure everything is working out correctly. If there's beeps and alarms, they're quick to get there and figure out what is going on. So, if it's something that can be taken care of in 2 hours instead of 4, it's definitely a step in the right direction. As I mentioned, first half dosage was on March 31st. The second half was yesterday. MS is caused by your immune system attacking the myelin surrounding the nerves in your brain and your central nervous system. So it goes down the spinal cord as well. Lesions, basically. Ocrevus targets certain B cells. We call them CD20 as far as the sort of inhibitors that happen with the B cells that are basically myelin attackers when someone has multiple sclerosis or demyelination. B cells play a central role in MS development as they activate the immune system in multiple ways, which also includes recruiting T cells to attack neurons. So basically, it's an autoimmune disease where the body is supposed to help us is now attacking us. So that's what multiple sclerosis is, and that's how ocrevus basically helps with that. I'll go back to me for a second. It's a question of, people take crab drugs and other things. And, you wonder, what exactly is multiple sclerosis? How does it work? Well, let's take a look at that. Multiple sclerosis is basically, there's a normal nerve, right? The normal nerve is represented by the nerve that's pictured in the upper right-hand corner. And it's basically a diagram we talked about on the interview I had with Susan a few weeks ago. That's a normal nerve, and then a damaged nerve is what that lower right-hand corner looks like, right? That's the myelin sheath around the nerve that is now damaged. And what happens there is the things that damage the myelin sheath are lesions. So there's a delay in the communication between the nerves of the brain and the central nervous system and the rest of the body. If it's localized, depending on where the lesions are, it can affect certain body parts. For example, people that have MS could have drop leg at a certain point in the sense that they can't walk correctly. That's why some people that have MS end up needing walkers or needing assistance moving. In an old world, when MS wasn't properly treated, after 15 to 20 years, MS patients end up becoming ambulatory. Fortunately, in this day and age, as far as how the science has come along, people that have MS live a longer life. It's a question of finding it right away and then treating it correctly. Now, that said, we talk about demyelination. We talk about the sheath around the nerves being withered away. There isn't anything called remyelination yet. There are studies right now that talk about certain drugs that can be remyelinating agents. Basically, agents that can cause myelin to grow instead of withering away. It's if you ever seen the movie Lorenzo's Oil, it's a movie about multiple sclerosis and demyelination. Lorenzo's Oil fictitiously talked about the growth of remyelinating or the growth of myelination. One of those drugs that are out there right now that are being studied is something called metformin. Metformin is a drug that is tied to diabetes. So metformin is used as something that can control blood sugar, but in certain phases of tests, they found that metformin can actually be a remyelinating agent. Now, there hasn't been any sort of larger study or any sort of larger further down the road. I think phase 2 is the only study I've seen thus far. But if we can get to a place where there's a metformin used in conjunction with an ocrevus, we could end up saying words that we would never imagine saying, in a sense that we may be closer to a cure than we never thought of before. And if that's the case, in my lifetime, or in Tina's lifetime, Tina, who was on the show last week, it can save so many lives. It could save so much distress. It can get doctors trying to find the next best thing. They're trying to figure out what's the next disease to try to figure out if we can have a cure for MS. But that's why we have organizations like the National Multiple Sclerosis, or the National MS Society, rather. And quickly, I'll bring that number back up. Wrong one. Wrong. That was from the last show. National MS Society basically is 1-800-344-4867. Again, 1-800-344-4867. Or you can go to their site at nationalmssociety.org. And while I am talking about that, let me go back to Maine for a second and talk about the virtual MS walk that's happening. Every year, there is the National MS Walk. In the last couple of years, because of the events that have been taking place with a certain thing that I cannot talk about, otherwise I get demonetized, the walks have been virtual. So this year, there is a virtual MS Walk. I am actually taking part in the virtual MS Walk, and one of my guests from a couple weeks ago, Susan Williams, is also taking part in the virtual MS Walk. Let me bring that graphic up real quick. Her fundraising site is fndfr.com/dn5r9. And my site is rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. Both of these sites are raising money for the National MS Society. We basically have teams that all the proceeds that we basically raise out of those two sites are funding the National MS Society in conjunction with the National or the Virtual Walk MS 2021. And for my role, I will be walking on May 1st. And I will do a live stream to talk about the walk, but also share some of my stories about MS. Also take comments and perhaps probably bring in folks probably via eCam. I'm trying to figure out the technology for this. If I can, I will. But there will definitely be a venture forward that day to talk about the walk as we try to raise money for the National MS Society Because, again, the National MS Society has raised $1 billion to date for the research of multiple sclerosis. They're an important organization, and an organization I am very thankful for. So, again, those are the 2 sites for the Virtual Walk MS. We got Susan's up at bndfr.com/DN5R9. I'll repeat that for those that are just listening. bndfr.com/DN5R9. Or you can go to my fundraising page, which would be rebrand.ly/a venture to a cure. For all of you who have donated already to my walk and to Susan's walk, thank you. Muchly appreciated. Every donation is very important as we try to find more disease-modifying treatments, more therapies, but more importantly, more cures, or not more cures, but a cure rather, for multiple sclerosis, in that of primary multiple sclerosis, relapsing multiple sclerosis, and CISs. So that's the information about the Virtual MS Walk. In fact, I think I have a slide on this too. I do. So the site looks like that. Susan's site is in the upper left-hand corner. My site is in the lower right-hand corner. We're both walking on May 1st. So either way, if you wanna donate money, those are the sites you can go to. Appreciated, big time. So. A couple more things about MS, because people are wondering, hey, you have MS, but what does that mean? I have no idea what that means, right? You look fine. A lot of times, people that have MS, people come to you and say, you look fine. I didn't know you had something wrong with you. Well, you don't absolutely have to have things wrong with you in order for you to be suffering with it. With me, it's something where it's been brain fog, it's been optic freezing, it's been numbness, it's been a lot of things. But as I mentioned before, multiple sclerosis affects people in many different ways. It depends on where the lesions are along your brain and your central nervous system. You wonder, I think I showed pictures of my MRIs earlier in it, I think maybe a month and a half ago. You want to know what an MRI looks like of the brain, a brain that's suffering with multiple sclerosis and the demyelination. It looks something like this. So a healthy brain would be the brain that's on the left-hand side. The brain that has the lesions that were caused by MS is a brain that's pictured on the right-hand side. Those little white areas are plaques. Now, a neurologist can figure out how bad the multiple sclerosis is progressing because as they take further MRIs, they're looking at the difference between one MRI versus another. If something is darker, then obviously it's a lesion that's been there for a while. Something that is lighter in color is something that is newly generated. In my case, when I started to have the symptoms over the holidays and I went for the MRIs in January, they saw lighter color lesions around the brain, but also down the central nervous system that are different color than the other ones that were there as far back as 2011. And that's a sort of benefit of holding on to those images. The fact that the medical community can basically share information like that is very important. I'm very thankful for the doctors back in Connecticut sharing that information with my doctors at UPenn and basically sharing that information back and forth. Also, a major thanks to those at Johns Hopkins, because I worked with a neurologist down in Baltimore when I had a little bit of a flare-up in 2012. The fact that we can communicate these sort of images and these sort of test results electronically and very quickly has helped us immensely, not only with multiple sclerosis, but with medicine in general. So much thanks to Hartford Hospital, much thanks to UConn, much thanks to the doctors in Connecticut, much thanks to Johns Hopkins, but definitely much thanks to the doctors at the University of Pennsylvania over in Philly. Go back to Maine. So the infusion, is definitely something that I have a lot of confidence and faith in. I really, in a world where the medication landscape has grown so dramatically, and the fact that we have a drug like ocrevus, I'm really thankful. It's a chance for me to at least try to tackle this. In 2011, and I think I mentioned this. If I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. In 2011, when I had that first event, the doctors wanted me to consider getting an MS diagnosis because of the severity of the first event. But if you look back at where we were with medication and basically healthcare in general 10 years ago, it would be very much a hard decision to make because you have that sort of condition that is now a diagnosis, and now you have a pre-existing condition, and now things become a lot more complicated. At least that was the case 10 years ago. Today, where pre-existing conditions are not so much deal breakers, showstoppers, etc., and the fact that the medication landscape has changed considerably, if there was a time to say, you know what, if it's MS, it's MS, now's the time. Moreover, because of the events of November and December and having the return of the numbness and the optic freezing, etc., now it just made all the sense in the world to start going down that road. And I'm very fortunate that I didn't have anything else happen. No other lesions in any other sort of sensitive area around the brain and the CNS. Going on something like ocrevus ensures that perhaps, and when I say perhaps, the efficacy is huge, that I won't have any more flare-ups. No more exacerbations. Maybe a life that has me as close to healthy and normally functioning, I guess, physically, mentally, etc., than, if I didn't, right? So, that said, looking forward to the 7T MRI in 2 weeks. I'll definitely share how that goes. I'll definitely share images as they're given to me, as I want to show you exactly what's going on with me. That's why we do the Venture Forward, right? These are things that I've gone through in my life, in the sense that I talked about the obesity, I talked about the alcoholism, I talked about the compulsive gambling, I talked about other things. In fact, I'm going to talk about what we're talking about next week, in the sense that we're going to talk about relationships, which we're going to address for the first time on this show, as far as relationships and the components therein, but moreover, what happens when relationships can bring toxicity and what that does to our health. And we're going to do 2 parts on it, Tuesday and Thursday next week at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And outside of that, there is going to be, I'll probably share a little bit of time on the episode next Thursday about what happens on the next event in my life, and that of the bankruptcy hearing on Wednesday. And there's going to be a follow-up on that. So we'll talk about that for sure, outside of continuing the series on relationships and our health. And then outside of that, May 1st, there'll be a special live stream of the MS Walk. I will be doing it live as I walk and try to raise money for the National MS Society. I'll bring that graphic back up once more for the National MS Society and the Virtual MS Walk. If you, those are the sites that you can go to for fundraising. Susan Williams' site is the bndfr.com/dn5r9. My site is rebrand.ly/adventure to a cure. And if you want to know more information about the National MS Society, you can call 1-800-344-4867, 1-800-344-4867, or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. A couple more comments here. That's what my brother had. It was a hard time walking. Yeah, The thing is, it could affect people physically for sure. That's why you'll have some folks that have MS that need walkers, or at some point, unfortunately, those that have severe MS, they can't walk anymore and they become ambulatory. Certainly, I feel like I'm in a good place right now with medicine and where they have found things quickly that I won't get there. But it does affect people in different ways. Marilyn says, it's such a blessing that you have a great team of doctors, so much to be grateful for in all the advancements in MS medicine and treatment. Yes, Marilyn, very much so. If it is such an important time in general as far as medicine, outside of the thing that has been transpiring in the world in the last year and change, but with multiple sclerosis and with cancer and with just so many things out there right now, that the medical community has made such a giant leap forward in trying to tackle these things. We're in a very good place. So I know that I have all the faith in the world, not only in the doctors and the neurology department at University of Pennsylvania at UPenn, but in general. And talk about great doctors in Johns Hopkins and Cleveland Clinic and Hartford Hospital of all places. They've had an up and coming neurology department in the last few years. So Mayo Clinic as well. It's really become an exciting time for those that are in medicine, outside of the obvious. That's what's happened in a year and change. We're really on the cusp of solving a lot of these diseases. So thank you for saying that, Marilyn. I appreciate it. Quick programming note. There won't be a VF Talks tomorrow night, but we will be back on Tuesday to start that conversation about relationships and health and what it does to our health. So that'll be Tuesday night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. But until then, I'm going to say the same thing I tell you at the end of every Venture Forward. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday for the next episode, an episode on relationships. Have a great night.